The word was spoken by the mouth of the prophets. Let it be. Times of hard working and poverty of souls. The flesh is at a crossroads. Behind the walls of lies, vices of hearts, the human heart despises the truth. Doomed to misery, blind slaves, systems of hungry spawn. And among all this crowd, nuggets hide in empty apartments on the outskirts of cities, tormented by everyone and at all times, utter the word of life with pure lips. The weak string will sink into the deep of oppression, and after it, a new life will be reborn under the all-seeing eye of God, the Spirit of Truth.
I welcome you to the platform Movement to the Light. We'll not tell you how to act, how to think, and what to do. We'll only give you access to information and how to dispose of it. Decide for yourself. I want to say in advance that you should not look for justice, but you should look for yourself and your place in this world. Because in the world of manipulation and deception, it is difficult to find the right answers. There will also be no answers from our side. Only keys will be given so that you can independently participate in the assembly of the game called life. And today it's time for the 21st series. Resources and trust. Life has development because development is seen into the paradigm of life. The development of life is the basis, since is disgusting the living from the dead. Life has different forms. One of these forms is a person. A person is a complex form built into a common paradigm. The paradigm of different forms of life has different parameters, since each form has its own destiny. The more complex the form, the more difficult life is for it. The complexity of human life lies in the fact that a person is an animal, but there is also something more than an animal. The animal basis allows a person not to die, but the truth is that a person himself finds a basis that allows him to live. This foundation is laid in the spirit. For the spirit dominates over the flesh. The spirit dictates the rule of life to a person, the flesh dictates the rules of survival to a person, and only in the choice of the two persons to make it. The basis of the flesh is the extraction of resources and their appropriation, since it is inherent in the animal to share what it has acquired. The primacy of the basis leads a person to tyranny, leads a person to the development, appropriation and accumulation of the maximum amount of material resources. The person in whom the animal has won strives to have more money, more power, more everything that multiplies his status. This is the animal basis. Since the flesh dictates the rules, this basis elevates the animal principle, killing the spiritual basis, killing the human principle. A person should remember that only the spirit dictates the rules of life, the eternal rules. The spirit of truth dictates to a person that resources are not the basis, but there is a tool, and the main resource of a person is trust. The spirit of truth dictates the rule that trust is the main tool for the development of a person's life. All other instruments have a place to be, but they have a place to be in their places, because the main place is only one. Considering the history of making for many thousands of years, one can come to different conclusions, but the reasons for all military actions are the same: the struggle for resources. Everything else is just an addition, beautifully welded by various ideological tricks. People generally have quite a lot of reasons to kill other living beings, ranging from the need to expand the living space, ending with the realization of greedy and selfish ambitions. After all, the first murder in the world, if we refer to the Holy Scripture, was completely out of envy. And envy is always based on dissatisfaction with the instinct of domination. It is generally difficult for people to admit to themselves that there is someone who is better than them, especially when it comes to a person's qualities. I have often met people who complain about their health, financial conditions, family relationships, and not only, but what I have not met exactly is people talking about their lack of intelligence. Here everything is bad for people, everything is not so, but with their mind, they're also always in complete order. The question is, why is this happening? The fact is that it is easy for a person to admit what he doesn't have, especially what can be taken away or appreciated, but it is difficult to admit what can be obtained exclusively through work cause. The toil of a fool wearies him, for he doesn't know the way to the city, but then I saw that all toil and all skill in the work come from a man's envy of his neighbor. And as already mentioned in previous broadcasts, the animal principle is the beginning of people who have maintained their level of mental maturity. At the borderline level, these people perform all other actions on the basis of instincts, dominance, saturation, and reproduction. They don't see any other reasons to live, and they won't see them until they start growing up psychologically, and this can be done only through the spiritual principle. Something is higher than the human and allows a person to know himself completely, cause the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is insight. Thus we have such a picture that a person performs his actions on the basis of instincts, which refers him to the animal principle. The animal principle ends where the human principle begins, and it begins with the neurotic level of the psyche, where reason is able to prevail over desires. The presence of a neurotic level of the psyche and mind opens the way for a person to know himself, thereby making a person a learned man. Such people become prominent figures, famous scientists, doctors, and devote their lives to the realization of their talents to increase life, and not just for the sake of their personal pocket. You can even say that these are people who have taken place in their profession, but not in life itself, because life and its realization are not the same thing. But the knowledge of life itself, such as it is, begins with the wisdom. And wisdom can be obtained only on the basis of a personal experience. It is acquired as a result of the discovery and acceptance, understanding and awareness of spiritual laws. All these laws work regardless of what people think about them, but wise people discovering them come to the same conclusion that all wisdom comes from wisdom, and wisdom is the name of the Lord, and the knowledge of wisdom is based on the recognition of the authority of God as the only lawgiver of life. For the Lord is our judge, the Lord is our lawgiver, and the Lord is our king. He will save us. And everything is generally clear. The only thing that it isn't clear is who we need to be saved from forever. This question is often asked by atheists of all stripes, and the funny thing is that they ask this question not in order to come to an answer, but in order to tease and ridicule the interlocutor. Although if people wanted to know the truth, they would come to the answer, that in addition to the structures that stand behind the Lord, there are structures that stand behind the evil one. And they are not less interested in human souls than God, but only in those who are at a low level of development, because in the end each person receives what he gives. And most people remaining at the level of animal needs at the end of their lives will give themselves, their souls, to the property of the company horns and hooves, and it's better for you not to know what will happen to these souls later. God needs people who have reached the level of self-knowledge, devoting their lives not only to needs but only to benefactors. After all, they desire to give, and do good deeds is the first stage of the person's spiritual growth. Therefore, the words of his mouth are trouble and deceit. He has a case to act wisely and do good. Turn away from evil and do good, so shall you dwell forever. But people often choose a different path, the path of evil, and the struggle for resources is one of such ways, because a person who is hungry for wealth is a person stricken with pride. If a fornicator constantly talks about his adventures, then a proud person always talks about money, about what to earn, about how to win them, about how to take them from someone else, and it's better that he himself gave them to you for beautiful eyes. Pride is one of the most serious sins, and for this sin there will be an equivalent reward. And here you can be a little confused, because now only the lazy person doesn't talk about money, and you will be right. Pride today, like the plague of the 21st century, has struck the absolute majority of the world's population. Everyone wants to grab a lot of resources, but there are also people who work honestly, fulfilling their purpose. It remains only to figure out what kind of people you personally relate to and what kind of people you want to deal with, because with whom you will be led, you will get enough. And in order to answer this question, there is a criterion that reveals sin and sheds light on healthy relationships, and this criterion is trust. People who can be trusted are honest and pure people before God, and evil people are always dodging, looking for convenient excuses, looking for a way to earn as much as possible from you. And if they can do that, they are looking for a way to avoid work, because they, first of all, work for money and not for the result. Here, of course, specification will definitely come up on the topic that every work should be paid, and I agree with this, but as practice shows, people first agree to the conditions, having discussed them, and then change their shoes in the course of work. Moreover, they are not in a hurry to try to show their professional skills, but they are always ready to demand their payment. That is why such people are always falling in terms of deadlines, demanding higher wages, demanding that they be understood, conveying the idea that it is our fault that we agreed to work with them and not they with us. And all these actions, bearing a large-scale nature, have devastating consequences somehow even. The teacher said, "I don't understand how you can deal with a person who can be trusted. If there is no axle in the cart, how can you ride it?" Thus, humanity, having known sin, has made it as an instrument in the realization of its animal desires, supporting it with necessity. But pride can be justified by necessity. It can be a condiment, seeing in it only a thought of situation. Thus, in the given condition in which we are today, people will not work for the common good, because they do not understand how it is possible to live without the benefit of a loved one. This is not the first time this has happened. History known many illustrative examples when peoples going into pride create cities in the likeness of Sodom, where patience prevail over multiplication and sin over virtue. But we also know what happens to your cities. Just as the garden was burned by fire from heaven, so the current civilization will sink under the onslaught of other people who are God-fearing. And this can happen even during our lifetime, because their regression has already begun, and the people of the modern civilized world are unable to stop it, because their thirst to extract resources is higher than the fear of self-preservation. These people are doomed to perish, and in general it serves them right, because everyone will get what he gave, and those people who will be able to preserve themselves in the darkness of time and will be able to fall into the charm will be saved by the Lord, having received the most expensive resource, life. The main thing is that when you hear the call of the angels, you will have to go to this call, go without looking back, because the one who looks back will be struck for unbelief, and those who will boldly look forward will be saved. After all, everything begins with the trust, and these people trusting their lives to God will go to the straight path. Perhaps they will even have to suffer from evil people for this, because Abel also suffered from his own brother. But no one has promised you that life is an easy walk. But the Lord has promised people that by keeping a covenant with Him, you will receive life eternal and real, which is worth more than all the riches of the material world. Results. The animal principle is based on instincts. Instincts realize the needs of a person, but a low level of mental maturity and distorts them. Perversion are a sin. The desire to consume as many resources as possible is based on the sin of pride. Where there is pride in people, there is no trust, and where there is no trust, society dies out. Trust in society begins with the trust in God. And trust in God gives society an impetus to the development and multiplication of life. And one last thing, remember, one series will not give an exhaustive answer to everything. We did this intentionally so that you would come to the conclusion that there is no one answer to everything, that the answer to everything lies in the answers to many questions. We'll analyze these questions in the following series, which will complement each other so that you have a complete picture, because the whole, although it is a combination of many details, is not always identical to them. Like trust, although it is a combination of a strong character, it isn't a character initially, and in order for trust to be formed in a person character, it will require making the right efforts. We'll finish this today. Peace be upon you and your home.